Okay, I'm going to attempt a Stockton Point. Now, there's a variety of different shapes for this type of point, so it's pretty interesting. I think I may be able to get 2 or 3 videos just on Stockton points, various sizes and various shapes. There's even a Stockton curved, and I'll show that a little bit later. I think I will do one of those too. And I'll be using iron, wrought iron. Now the Stockton was a late prehistoric point. So this is after the widespread use of the bow. And this is going to be a fairly large point. So it's difficult to say what this point was used for. Was it used on an atlatl dart because atlatls were used in the area up until the late prehistoric, or is it a knife blade, or what is it? I'm going to be trying to replicate, or yeah, I guess, well, not really replicate, but copy one of these. This one here. Now this is a Stockton curved. This one and these two on the ends. And these definitely look like knife blades. They could all be knife blades. This is an untyped Stockton because it has a concave base, I assume. All these other Stocktons tend to have convex expanding stems, except for that one. I think I might want to do that one anyway because it looks pretty cool on a different video. But I'm going to try the, I think they call it Stockton corner notched. Yeah, I'm going to try a Stockton corner notch out of this silver sheen stuff. Still the same material from the spalls on the spalling by request video. I haven't changed out the material. Now I've got some more material. I just got a box from Dave Ten Bears. He sent me some material. My favorite is this triple flow or tri-flow. Let's see, unknown glass. I like that. Cobalt. I guess that's the color. There's a jasper. Goldstone. It's a type of glass. It's got glitter, a glittery type of effect. Wild horse jasper. Never heard of that before. And Idaho obsidian, which looks interesting, I think. When I say interesting, it's in quotation marks. It may or may not be nice to nap. Okay, so here we go. I'll be napping some of that material in upcoming videos. If it's glass, it's going to be in the glass, in this glass series. Okay. Some of that jasper, I may wait. Well, I'm going to wait, but I may wait a while for that. Okay. There's a lot of other stuff I need to catch up on. Okay. So I'm going to cross my fingers, hope everything goes okay with this. I want to be careful with this particular spall. I really don't want to mess it up. And I mentioned I'm going to do another clear glass video, but I think I'm not going to be doing it on this channel. I'll do it on the Allergic Hobbit channel. Once I figure out what type of clear glass is best, or what I think is best. I have a feeling I'm going to have to experiment a lot more, but plate glass may be the answer. A thicker window glass or some other non-tempered plate glass. Although, you know, tempered glass does nap, and it's tough, so it makes good functional arrowheads when you get lucky enough to make a point that doesn't snap or doesn't break in an odd way. If you can manage to get an arrowhead out of tempered glass, it's usually pretty durable. Obviously, right? But just getting to that stage where you can actually have an arrowhead that's nice to look at, as well as functionality. You can make any kind of arrowhead as long as you're not worried about the looks, right? But we're interested in both aesthetics and functionality here on this channel. Supposedly. Some people might disagree with that. They usually don't leave that kind of comment in the comment section, though. So I assume they just move on to another channel. Let's see. There's always a brand new person on every video that I make. So if you're just now tuning in, I don't normally use wrought iron, just so you know. Normally, my favorite material, I would have to say, is copper, right? Copper is enjoyable. I enjoy napping with copper. Now, I nap with other materials so I can demonstrate that it is possible to generate nice flakes and create usable napped points from different tool materials. It's a lot of it has to do with technique and not just the material. The material is important. The material of the workpiece and the material of a tool is important, but it will surprise you if you haven't experimented with other tool materials that they can be effective, and your brain can adapt to the shortcomings of other materials. Like steel and wrought iron are very harsh on the edges of the stone, but you can learn to compensate for that by being very careful with the platforms. Which means you need to make sure that they're dull enough to support a strike. But you get the feel for that as you use the material, as you use the steel. Now, I was reading the other day, I don't know if I mentioned this, that wrought iron and mild steel are extremely similar. Modern day wrought iron and modern day mild steel is very similar in properties. So if you're using mild steel, you have no access to wrought iron, and you're saying to yourself, man, if I only had some wrought iron, I could do some good work. Mild steel is almost exactly the same as far as properties. It's different molecular structure, and it's a different internal structure of the metal itself, wrought iron contains a lot of slag and mild steel does not. But the properties, the working properties, are very similar. So if you're using nails, nails are mild steel, or any other kind of mild steel rods or whatever, you're going to be in the same boat as someone who's using wrought iron. Just so you know. Wrought iron is nice to work with. I don't think I like it as much as mild steel or knapping with nails, just plain old common nails. These flakers I made previously, these are just common nails. You go to the store and it says, you know, something D common. Those are the, you know, I believe those are mild steel. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't looked that particular thing up, but I'm pretty sure that the common nails are mild steel. Okay. So what I normally do is flatten one side and then work on the lumps on the opposite side, attacking the ends first to thin them down, and then the worst spots first after that. If the ends are already thin and there's not big masses hanging on the ends, I'll start attacking the thick spots within the blade itself. Now, I don't have a side view of these Stockton points, but judging by the serrations, they're probably pretty thin, because the serrations go very deep, and you need a thin point to do that. Well, you don't necessarily need a thin point, but it helps. It helps quite a bit to be thin. To have a thin point to do the serrations with. And that was a mistake. Not enough power in that strike, and it didn't go all the way. Those kind of step fractures are common on artifacts too. But it doesn't make me feel any better. Let's see. I try to get rid of those as fast as possible. Sometimes I'll leave a step fracture for later, come back to it, but those I like to get rid of those right away. Now this wrought iron indirect percussion flaker is a little bit sharper than I would normally use, but I don't feel like making another wrought iron indirect percussion flaker. I could probably use this one. I would just have to cut it off and file it down so it'd be thicker than this. So I need an intermediate size. Yeah, that would be best, but it's okay. I should just make it duller. two ways to dress these indirect percussion flakers. I like a domed, semicircular, rounded tip, but you can also flatten it at an angle or flatten it straight. You know, just a perpendicular flat or flatten it at an angle, and then you can use that angle to match the angle of the edge here, the way like Jason Newman does it. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel or his Facebook page, look up Jason Newman Flintknapping. He has taken this style of indirect percussion to another level and is capable of replicating extremely thin bifaces. Someday, if I have enough time, I'll like to do that as well. I'd like to get into larger pieces and thinner pieces and get that amazing, hopefully someday, get that amazing width to thickness ratio that he gets. But I think I still have a few years left in me before I stop doing this. Okay. Get to the point where I can finish this with pressure only. I think Stockton Points have a lot of pressure work. When I start getting step fractures like that, that means I'm trying to thin down something that's already probably too thin for my skill level, at least. Let's see. For my skill level on this indirect percussion flaker. The other day I was thinking maybe I should take some time off and concentrate, focus on pattern flaking. Just like I took some time off. I took about a year off. I was out of focus, sorry about that. I took a year off in the past to focus on nothing but avoiding step fractures. And I wanted to do it off camera because it was something that was really bugging me, that I couldn't figure out a way where I couldn't, for some reason, couldn't grasp the techniques or the technique needed to avoid step fractures. The secret is just don't bite off more than you can chew, right? But it took me a year and many hours to eliminate any other possibility. I didn't want any distractions. So the same thing, I was thinking about doing the same thing with pattern flaking, but I don't think I have to. I think I can go film as I learn. A pattern flaking, you know, those fancy ribbon flakes, in my opinion, they have no functional value. They just have an aesthetic value and perhaps a time-saving advantage. It may be a time saver. I don't know because I haven't really focused on knapping in that way. For me, random flaking and attacking the worst spots first and not worrying too much about the pattern is time saver. But I may be wrong on that. Maybe pattern flaking is the best way to save time once you know how to do it. It may be a worthwhile investment to spend many, many hours figuring out how to do the same thing over and over and over as far as results. You may have to adjust your technique to get the same result, but the result is what you're trying to achieve over and over and over again. It may be worth the time because it's going to take me some time. You know, it takes less time if you are working pre-ground, pre-shaped preforms that already have a lenticular shape, and all you got to do is run flakes, cosmetic flakes across the surface. I don't knap that way, so I'm going to have to learn to apply pattern flaking on a surface that starts probably at random with random flaking, and then generate some pattern flaking over the random flaking. On the artifacts that I've studied, of the types that do have pattern flaking, their preforms do not appear to have pattern flaking. You know what I mean? The preforms appear random, and then you get to the finished form, and it has that pattern in it. That's what I've seen mostly on the real artifacts. And if you guys have seen something different, I'd like to see the exceptions to that. Are there any artifacts that have patterned flaking on the preforms before the finished flaking? I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay. All right, let's see. Before I get too far, I think I have enough space, yeah. I can go fairly narrow. Okay, that's good. I was a little worried about not having enough room for the barbs, but I've got plenty of room. So what I'm going to do now is work on the edges, make them very consistent, very regular, try to get a nice preform for the final thinning. I don't know, I'm getting some step fractures. I'm going to try to eliminate any step fractures along the edge and not create them. I forget how delicate this silver sheen is. It's a lot softer than the tempered clear glass. There's hardly any effort needed to pressure flake this. lot easier than the clear glass. So I wouldn't get discouraged if you have a lot of silver sheen or this type of obsidian. It may be a hassle to make small points out of it, but to make larger points, it's not bad. Just gotta try to avoid the step fractures. And just don't bite off more than you can chew. Take off little flakes and then work your way up to bigger flakes. But you can knap a point with all small flakes. It'll be kind of thick in the middle, but better to be thick than broken. Or better to be thick than steppy. And that might not be true in a survival situation, but I don't really get into survival techniques here on this channel. Maybe I should, I don't know. It really doesn't matter what the surface of your point looks like for a survival situation. It's the edge that counts. Is it going to cut? Now, if you're building or making points for aesthetics, then the edge really doesn't matter because you're not going to be using it. It's all aesthetics on the flaking. Two different ways of doing it. Combining the two is where the skill comes in. It looks good and it is sharp too, and durable, which means you have a very consistent cross section, no waviness in the surface and that kind of thing, no cracks, etc. Okay, so I've got a good preform. I'm going to really get in there and try to eliminate all the weak areas, thin it down a little bit more, and then do the notching.